What's up, HyperFast Nation? On this episode of the show, I sat down with a sales and recruiting expert. He has sold over $10 million in high-ticket sales. He's built a company that is well on its way to 9 figures, and he's done that in just a year and a half. Welcome to the show, Cole Gordon. Welcome to the show today, Cole. How are you doing?
Good. How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on today. I know we got a lot of cool topics to dive into on sales, how to train sales people, and then how you've been able to use that income and invest in real estate. But why don't we start off just give you a chance to introduce yourself and give people a little bit of your bio.
Well, my name is Cole Gordon, and I'm the owner of Closers.io. So that's a sales training and recruiting company. And essentially, we're the only service-based company that's a dual-sided marketplace in the sales recruiting industry. So we have a certification that trains up salespeople in the same methodology that I use to generate, $400,000 to $500,000 commissions, net commissions, when I was a full-time salesperson, which for the thing I was selling in the industry that I was in, that was really good. I understand some people make more than that, but a lot of it, I think, depends on your opportunity. For what I was doing, that was like top of the game for sure. And so we train people up and place them on one side, and the other side is we help build and customize sales teams. So those two sides kind of have a little bit of a network effect in which they feed off of each other, which is really, really cool. And we're really the only company, especially in the high ticket space, that does that. And that also does it from a service component, not like a pseudo software marketplace thing that's kind of just like a glorified Upwork. So yeah, that's what we do. 5 years ago, I was broke, bartending, and wanted to create a company and start a business. And I read a bunch of books, took a bunch of courses, and after a lot of time with no success, I started a digital agency. That did okay, but I really wasn't able to be profitable, but I was good at sales. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go into this sales thing. It's like kind of the military of business. People are like, I'm getting into sales. And so I went into sales, and I thought I was good. But turns out, once you're a full-time sales professional and you're closing cold leads that aren't good, like bad leads, you realize you're not as good as you thought. And so I quickly was like the worst salesperson on that team and went from being the worst to the best, and it wasn't overnight. It certainly took me like a year. And there's a lot of good shifts that happened during that time. And then I kind of, after I got my talents pretty sharp, I realized that not all sales opportunities are created equal. So I went to a different opportunity, and immediately I was making way more than before, and I was like the best person on that team. Then I went to another opportunity, and I like tripled my income simply just because of the offer, the lead generation, the marketing was so much superior to like where I kind of started in my roots, which was the worst leads imaginable. They were terrible, terrible leads. We were selling to real estate agents. And then so after that stint, I started my sales training company, which I started off sales training, and then I started training sales teams because there's a little bit more money in that. It was a little bit more fun. I could create more impact. And then I started I started recruiting salespeople simply just because I was getting asked all of the time, do you know where I can find good salespeople? Where can I find good salespeople? How do I get good salespeople? So I started making connections, and I'd make a connection to a salesperson, to a business owner, and then the person would be doing like a couple million a year for the business owner. And I was like, man, like I should kind of be compensated for that, right? This is like my network in essence. And, at the time there was one main competitor who I certainly respected a lot. I think he's a good person who was doing that, and he was somewhat successful. So I kind of knew like, I want to do this, but also put my own spin on it. So I sort of merged what I was already doing on the consulting side with a recruiting arm to it. So we kind of became the only company that wasn't just a sales consulting, but we also did the recruiting, and it kind of bound them together into one thing. And from that point, when I started that, the company was doing probably $150,000 a month, and basically it was just me, so it was all profit for the most part. And then I got that to $2.5 million, is pretty much where we've been plateaued at for almost like 9 months, to be candid. So $2.5 million a month, so about $30 million a year. And we're still super profitable and super fun, and it's a great company. We've impacted a lot of people, worked with a lot of top names in the industry, Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi, Frank Kern, Agora Financials, a $1.5 billion company. Almost all of like the big gurus who are spending a lot of money on ads. You probably see a lot of their stuff all the time. If you know Astro Flipping or Sub2 with Pace Morby, we've staffed for them as well. Really anybody's and everybody's have come through or still use at one point Closers.io, which is probably what I'm most proud of, is not like how much money I made, but the people that we've helped and really trying to uplift the standard of this industry.
What was that moment like the first time you realized, I'm not just selling and getting commissions. I'm at the top of this industry or this area. Like what was that moment like, and what do you think separated you from the average salesperson?
When I was a full-time salesperson?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you read the book Turning Pro by Stephen Pressfield, I mean, it was very much, I just turned pro. Like, to be candid, when you're, like, if you're being an entrepreneur, it's tough because it's like the top of you're competing against people who are, at the top of the game, extremely competitive, and all of your competition is driven. They're giving it their all. Like there is some people who maybe lack effort, but most people are just putting in everything they have. They're developing themselves, they're investing in themselves, they're trying as hard as they can, they're working 12-hour days. So, not necessarily everybody's working 12-hour days, but they're all grinding. What's funny though, is when you're a salesperson for a company, not everybody's like that. There's a lot of people who are using it as a means to the end, and it's just literally their job. And they're and I'm not saying that's anything bad. Like maybe they're optimizing their family life or their health, and they're really at a place where they're kind of like, I like this company, but I'm not necessarily trying to be like the best in the world. So for me, I was I kind of when I first started and I sucked, I was sort of dabbling with some other stuff. I kind of was like, I'm going to get into sales and eventually start my agency again. Or I was like, I'm going to get into sales and then start an e-commerce store, which is very common, believe it or not. Salespeople always have these like side things going on. And so, I kind of was like that for a while. And then I got so good that I was like, man, if I actually just burn the boats and just tunnel vision, make this my everything, I'm going to like take this to a whole nother level. And I really took like a business owner, entrepreneurial, pro athlete, basically mindset towards my sales position. And that's when I got tremendously good, is when I really went all in on it. And I treated it like a NFL football player would treat, football, right? And that's the number one way I can describe it. So how did that look? Well, obviously I went through every single bit of training possible. Like I have a great sales training and a lot of it's from my experience. But a lot of it's because I was able to learn from great mentors and assimilate and try out their stuff and make it my own and really kind of put it together into its own unique system that I felt like was authentic to me. There was also the fact that I went from essentially being like, kind of all over the place and not taking it seriously to where like I really treated every single day of work like I was showing up for like a game. It was like the Saturday night football game and I was playing like the quarterback position. So like my sleep was really good. I would have a dial morning routine. I would do all of these things in the morning. And, I think morning routine is a little bit overrated for most people, but I will say,
what did you do?
For a salesperson, to optimize your energy, it's huge. Sorry?
Yeah, what did you do for your morning routine?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is I do think with sales, you need to have your nervous system revved up. So I found that I needed to wake up a couple hours ahead of time before I was even taking calls to really get my nervous system going, okay? And so I'd wake up, I started taking calls at about, the sales meeting would be at 8 a.m. I'd take calls at 9 a.m. This is Central Time. And I'd wake up at 5. And I know a lot of people, like Craig Ballantyne's, a friend of mine, and he teaches like get up at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. and start working. That's great. I could do that now. But like, you're not really going to get up in the morning, 4 a.m. as a salesperson, like cold call people. You could, but like they're probably not going to answer. They're going to be pissed off. So you can't really start till like 8 a.m.-ish time, Central Mountain, around then. And so I would get up at 5. First thing I would do every single morning is I'd read, right? Now, there's something about reading to where it does, whatever you read in the morning influences your thoughts for the rest of the day. It is true. I mean, sometimes I'll read books on like physics and stuff, and it's like it'll totally influence how I'm thinking about problems and how I'm communicating with other people for the rest of the day. So that's a tremendously good habit. Now back then, I would typically read like sales books, personal development, books on energy, books on performance, because that's kind of what was pertinent to me at the time. And so I'd read stuff on that. And then essentially after that, what I would do is I would get up, go work out, and I would do something that was like explosive, typically like weightlifting, and then I would also like get my heart rate up, maybe do a run at the end or sprints or whatever, just to sort of like, that really does do a big energy shift. And then after that, I would take a cold shower, which again, kind of helps your nervous system rev up. And then I would meditate and do breath work, particularly like a Kundalini breath of fire or Wim Hof breathing afterwards. So it's a pretty kind of, it sounds extensive. I mean, that's really not that bad. You're only kind of doing 3 sort of phases to it. And by the end of that routine, I would be so dialed in. I'd be like Zen, you know? And I felt that was tremendously valuable. Now, candidly, I don't do the meditation as much as I should have. I do still work out a lot. I still reading every morning is probably my number 1 habit that I really like. I should probably do more meditation. I don't know what it is right now. I just don't do it. And I can get away with it. Opposed to sales, I really couldn't. So I would do that, and then I would start my day. You know, maybe I'd do some like journaling or something, but I found, and I think there's like real, you know, studies or science behind this, but when you do that combination of exercise plus the meditation or breath work, it puts you in the alpha brainwave state. Okay, and so I know I've heard Tom Bilyeu talk about this and several other people, and it's a weird combo to where you exercise, then do the breath work that does put you in that state, and it really helps you just go through your sales day and take the rejections and take the no's and all of that stuff.
What do you think is the biggest thing like the average salesperson can do that, you know, maybe they're making a little bit of money, but they're just kind of, you know, getting by. Like what does that person do usually like to get to the next level?
Hey, hold that thought. Do you want to get 100 tips for free from my best-selling real estate book, The Hyperlocal HyperFast Real Estate Agent? If you do, go to hyperfasttips.com and you can download 100 of my best tips today. Again, that's hyperfasttips.com. You can download 100 tips on how to grow your business, get more clients, deliver more value to more people. Go to hyperfasttips.com.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things, right? I mean, there's 2 main levers. There's your skill set, and then there's your opportunity that you're doing. So let's cover the skill set first, right? So the first thing is, I mean, you actually have to be good. Duh, right? Okay, so 2 parts of being good. There's like your mindset, energy, performance type stuff, and then there's like your actual tactical abilities, right? So like in terms of your beliefs and your mindset and your performance, one part of that is like, what do you believe about sales? Do you think sales is good? Do you have conviction in your product? Like a lot of times, like great salespeople are also very well educated on personal development, and essentially they're very, very good at helping teach prospects how to think the right way about succeeding in whatever they're selling, essentially. And so a lot of that comes from the right beliefs and personal development and being able to challenge people and really being a leader, you know, is a great way to put it. So leadership. But the other aspect of it as well is like how you're managing your energy. And I would say, like, I just kind of gave my morning routine, but I say even more important than the morning routine, this is probably the single biggest thing that impacted my sales results, and it's so stupid, you know, it's like so simple, is I just went to bed at the same time every night. So I kind of took my bedtime used to be like whenever to 8. Like I just went to bed at 8 every night and then woke up naturally at like 5 to 5:30. I mean, because the sleep is one of those cornerstone habits that everything else goes, and I still do that to today. I mean, there's nothing that will make your energy and your health more consistent than that. So there's that. I mean, there's your morning routine. There's different things that you can do there. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is like tactically in your selling abilities. And so how good are you with asking questions and your language and your sales process and being able to provide insight and diagnosing and prescribing? I mean, that's a whole thing, right? And the easiest way to get good at that is to hire a coach, right? And particularly get in part of a program that can review your calls. Like that's the number one thing. You can read as many sales books as you want, but to be honest, I have never really found them to be that helpful. The main thing is a lot of experience and getting somebody to review your calls. I mean, reviewing your own calls, you know. That's what's really going to help tremendously more than anything else. And so, you know, obviously that's part of what we do for our salespeople clients. I can go into, there's essentially 7 beliefs your prospect has to have to buy. And I've built a whole sales process around that. I can go into that if you would like.
Yeah, let's dive into that.
So essentially there's 7 beliefs your prospect has to have to buy. Okay, and what we want to do is through asking questions in the sales process, we want to break down these 7 limiting beliefs, the counter beliefs, and rebuild the empowering beliefs before we transition to the close. Because if we can do that, what happens is instead of having a hard close or convince the prospect, essentially the prospect finds themselves in the buying pocket, and because they believe what they need to believe to be true to buy, they're pretty much effortlessly closing themselves. And in doing so, they'll view us as a leader and not this like sleazy salesperson. So, what are the 7 beliefs? Well, the 7 beliefs are pain, doubt, cost, desire, money, support, and trust. Pain, doubt, cost, desire, money, support, and trust. So, pain is really the belief that they have a problem. Okay, there's 2 types of problems. There's like pain, which is like back pain, right? A headache. You buy an aspirin to get rid of a headache. That's like pain. It's very away from. And then there's an unfulfilled desire. So an unfulfilled desire is they're okay, but they want to get better, right? Their marriage is good, but it's a couple who really wants to like take their marriage to the next level. It's a person who's healthy, but they want to compete on stage and get in bodybuilding. It's a business owner who's doing $1 million a year, but they want to get to $10 million a year, right? So an unfulfilled desire is more a towards. A pain is more of an away from. Now, it's not a binary distinction like that. It is a dichotomy. So there's always going to be away from and towards in every single sort of thing that people are trying to do in their lives a lot of times. But there's typically a predominant one over the other, okay? So there's a pain and then there's an unfulfilled desire. And a good way to think about it is people either go from below average to average or average to excellent. Okay, that was a framework that I learned from one of my mentors, Kevin Nations. So there's pain. All of the other 6 beliefs are predicated on the pain. So why is that? Okay? Because business is about solving problems. That's because when you solve a problem, you create value and money follows value. So if we know that to be true, then sales is just a demonstration and the transference of certainty that we could solve a problem for somebody else. And if there's no problem, there's no sale. So we must begin conversation by identifying what is the gap. What is either the pain or the unfulfilled desire? Because everything else that I'm going to cover in just a second is going to stem based on that. So pain is number 1. Doubt is number 2. What is doubt? Doubt is they have to believe there's an inability for themselves to fix the problem or a lack of efficiency. So they might believe they could fix it, but it's like, it would take too much time, it would be too much energy, it would cost me unnecessary resources. It's the reason why they don't want to do it themselves, right? Each of these 7 leads to an objection. There's only 7 types of an objection. It's due to the 7 beliefs. That's how I created this. And I didn't get this from a book. I literally just made this up. Like before I even was going to teach sales, this is just how I thought about shit. So there's pain. If they don't have pain, they're going to be like, I don't need this. I don't want this. This isn't relevant to me. If they don't have doubt, they'll say, yeah, this is relevant, but I want to do it myself. What's the next belief? The next belief, the third belief is cost. Okay? Cost means the pain, essentially, the cost of taking action in the form of time, energy, money, investment into your product or service is drastically less than the cost of staying where they are, the consequences of staying where they are, right? And there's a tipping point, right? That is not like, it could be like this. You know, if the cost of where they're staying where they're at is here, and the cost of them investing in your product is here, that doesn't work. As Jordan Belfort says in his book, Wolf of Wall Street, or what is it, Straight Line, whatever. He's not the one I got this from, but this particular concept about not risk threshold, but there's a certain type of, it might be risk threshold. There's a certain threshold they have to meet for it to work, right? So for them
otherwise
to have,
they'd rather just stay where they are. Would you say
greater
that?
enough, exactly. So it's not enough. It's not enough for them to be a little bit less. It has to be like drastically less. That's past a critical mass tipping point. Does that make sense? So that's the consequences of staying where they're at. So an easy way to think about this is if you have ever been to UPW and Tony Robbins walks people through the Dickens pattern or the Dickens process, where you take a behavior that you don't like about yourself or that's not serving you, and you basically imagine yourself 3, 5, 10 years down the road of that not having been fixed, and what's going to happen, what are the consequences if you leave this unchanged. And then you bring all that pain back to the surface. That's establishing cost so somebody changes their behavior. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Right? And it's not just cost in terms of money. There's time, energy, reputation, and resource. Right? There might be some others too. So it's not just money, right? The fourth thing is desire. So that's the compelling payoff they get if they fix the problem. Okay? See how all these things are predicated on the pain? If we can't get any of these if we don't have the pain. Because it's a compelling payoff of fixing the problem. It's the cost of not fixing the problem. It's the doubt about fixing the problem. So we got to fix the problem. We got to find the problem first. Number 5 is money. They have to have the resources and the willingness to fix the problem. Okay? The resources is like, do they physically have the resources? If I'm trying to sell you on a podcast group, coaching program about how to build a 7-figure podcast or something. Well, if you're just starting off and you have 500 credit score and $400 in the bank and you're month to month, then you literally do not have the resources. Okay? Sure, you could maybe sell your car or something. But for our purposes here, we're just going to say you don't have the resources. Willingness is not necessarily do they have the resources, but if they do have it, are they willing? So for instance, one of my clients was a dating coach selling a lawyer who was making $250,000 a year on how to fix his dating life. He had the pain because his dating life sucked. He had the money, but he wasn't willing. When he heard it was $5K for 90 days, he was like, I'm not going to spend that much money on dating coaching. So he wasn't willing. Now, willingness is a symptom of a lack of cost. So it ties back into one of those things. Okay? Is this helpful?
Yeah.
Cool. Support is, do people around me, close to me, stakeholders in the decision, support me in making the decision? So support could be your partner, obviously, your spouse, your business partner. It could also be, though, your board, your chair, your investors. It could also be, like for me, I was going to invest in something not too long ago, and I wasn't going to be the one implementing it. I wasn't going to be the project manager. So even though I was the decision maker, because the people who were going to implement it said they were maxed on bandwidth, I didn't have support, and the salesperson lost the sale. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. Support. The last one is trust. 3 types of trust. Trust in you, the salesperson, the company, but more importantly, trust in the methodology. Okay? Trust in the methodology. What does that even mean? That means they must believe your method of getting to said desire is the fastest, most effective, or the biggest, best, whatever way, the only way to getting there. Okay? The trust in the method. Here's the thing. Your method needs to be the simultaneous explanation of why everything they tried in the past has failed and why this is going to be different. If you were selling whole life insurance, you need to explain why that as your primary investment vehicle is the reason your stocks didn't work out in the past, and it's also the mechanism of how that works is the reason this is going to be different. If you're selling the ketogenic diet, by the nature of explaining the ketogenic diet, you have to explain why the person hasn't been able to lose weight due to insulin resistance and why getting into a state of ketosis is going to make it different. Okay? Do you know who Russell Brunson is?
Oh, yeah. I've been to Funnel Hacking Live.
So you've been to the events.
A few times. Yeah.
So when he pitches ClickFunnels, he doesn't ever say, here's why you should buy ClickFunnels. What does he say? He says, look, if you're a small business owner and you need to get customers online, developing sales funnels is the most efficient, effective way to get customers online. Because if he can get you to believe that, then he can get you to believe you're going to buy ClickFunnels. If you believe funnels is the way and you have to do it, well, like buying his product is a byproduct of that belief. And if he's the one who installs it, you automatically buy, right? If I teach you that if I'm a turnkey company for real estate, and I teach you that B and C class single family homes is the #1 most effective bulletproof way to build wealth for the average middle class or upper class American, and you can rock solid that belief in, if I happen to sell single family homes, you're gonna buy from me, right?
Right.
So those are the 7 beliefs. What we want to do is use our questions to basically, because each of the 7 have a counter 7, like a dark side, to where they don't believe it. And those create the objections, right? So with pain, if they don't have it, they don't want it. Doubt is, I can do this myself. Cost is, yeah, let's circle back in 3 months. Oh, this sounds good. Let me think about it, right? Any sort of like delay is always a cost thing. Desire is like, really it's again, like they don't want it. Desire is usually very rare, but it's like they are like in a lot of pain, but they have so little vision, they don't see where your product's going to take them. This is very rare. Nobody really struggles with that one, but it is important to establish. Money is, I don't have the money. Duh. Support is, let me talk to my insert whatever you want. Dog, grandma, etc. Then trust is, this is key. Trust is, I know I need to do this and I need to do it now, but this sounds like kind of, I don't get how this is different. It sounds like the last X I invested in. It sounds like the last turnkey company that promised me Y. It sounds like, the last group coaching program I was a part of. So how is your thing any different? I've already been burned by this before. So what can happen is if we could use our questions to break down the counter beliefs and reinstall the empowering beliefs before we transition to the close, we create what's called an objectionless close, to where again, the prospect, instead of us having to hard close them, they close themselves. Because what happens is when we ask the questions, we're asking them to speak into existence the rebuttal to their own objection. When they do that, we're leveraging what Robert Cialdini calls the highest driver of human behavior, which is what? The consistency bias. The desire to appear consistent is the highest driver of human behavior. Right? That's why they say if you want to achieve a goal, declare it publicly, because now you're going to want to fulfill what you said you're going to do. Okay? So if we can get them to speak into existence the rebuttals to their own objections and do it in a socially aware way, because granted, when I say that, a lot of salespeople will say, oh, well, that make duh. Like, yeah, you want to, use your questions to get the answer. It's like, yes, but like the problem is like most people, they clunk around in the process. It's just bad. So it either creates a bunch of sales resistance or the prospect's not honest, etc. So if we get an attackful Socratic dialogue method of doing it, have the prospect speak their objections into existence, they're going to talk themselves right into the sale. Does that make sense?
Hey, hold that thought for a minute. Do you want to take your real estate business to the next level? If you do, there's no reason to go it alone. Learn from people who've been where you want to go. Carrie and I have sold billions of dollars in real estate. We've netted over 7 figures for 7 years in a row now, and we want to see if you would be a good fit to work for us. We don't work with a lot of people, but we want to give you a chance to get on a free strategy call to see if we can help you get your business to the next level. Go to hyperfastcoach.com and apply for your discovery session today. Again, that's hyperfastcoach.com.
Yeah, if you do this well enough, you mentioned the objectionless close, do you actually get to a point where instead of you having to close them, they're closing you?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I just said.
Yeah. That's, do you teach almost at that point that before you even make the sale, you should be trying to get them to close you, like almost like they need to prove to you why.
Yeah, I mean, you're not laying down and being a passive like beta and being like, oh yeah, you're just going to talk yourself into it. And you're certainly not doing this thing where you're like, well, like you like, why should I work with you? You know, like we're a turnkey real estate company. We only take them around. Why should we work with you? Like it's like, okay, like look, that can work if it's authentic. It is very powerful if it's authentic. You know, a lot of that I think comes from Dan Kennedy's stuff. And, you know, he used to teach like be very unavailable and like make it so they have to fight to basically get a hold of you and qualify themselves to you. That is great if there's a true supply and demand like gap, right? There's very little supply, a lot of demand. Yeah, that works great. Okay? Like if The Rock comes out with a coaching program and he only takes on 100 people. Yeah, he should just do that, you know? But no, I mean, what I teach is like, you know, the everyday salesperson trying to make some sales. And most of the times that doesn't work, you know? So it doesn't mean they need to be this like golden retriever salesperson. And they're like, you know, beta or something. But they just need to come from a place of being equal, you know? And it's like, hey, we want to find a mutually good fit.
Yeah, I love how you break down those 7 beliefs and you know, using questions to get there. Love the example of Russell Brunson as well, because I've been to a lot of his events, and the way he's been able to scale a sales company has been, you know, amazing to see. So clearly, you know, you're immersed in a lot of these you know, systems and these top guys, what they've put out. How have you built a company where you're able to translate, you know, these techniques and strategies to so many other sales agents or salespeople in different you know, industries?
Yeah, I mean, well, a big part of it is one, documenting the thought processes and the training and all of that stuff into something somebody can go through. And then number 2, it's actually giving somebody real support and what would you say? You know, feedback, I suppose. I mean, that sounds pretty obvious, but like, here's the deal. When I was in college, I played college football for a little bit, and all we did, like, I mean, we did this more than practice. The majority of our time was spent reviewing film. That was like literally everything. And I think there's a lot of power in that, because when you review film and you can see yourself and you can like look at what you were doing and like you could see kind of how you were doing it, and then you can get critiqued on what to change. There's nothing that helps behavioral change in anything as much as that. And the great thing about sales is you could do that, right? You can critique, okay? And so I would say that's the number one thing, because people can go through training and they can think they're doing a lot of stuff right. Like, you know, there's so many times like a salesperson, I don't do these Q&As as much anymore, but I used to do the Q&As in our group, and the salesperson would be like, yeah, I got this objection and like this happened. And I'd be like, okay, well, like say this. And they'd be like, yeah, I said that. I'd be like, okay, well, like, did you say this? And like, yeah, I said that too. And it's just like they're trying to like maybe get you to confirm that like, yeah, you couldn't, there's nothing you could do, it's not your fault or something. But then you listen to the call and it's like terrible. And you're like, okay, well, like obviously you just stink. So it's a blind spot. And I think what you need to do is help people reveal their own blind spots.
Awesome. Before we wrap up here, I always like to end with a HyperFast round. If you are ready for some rapid fire questions and answers.
Sure.
All right. What is the number one piece of advice you would give to a new salesperson?
Get a mentor.
What's the biggest mistake you see experienced salespeople making?
Forgetting the fundamentals, getting lazy, and really not listening because they've heard the same person say things a bajillion times. So what happens is like 9 months, like Neil Rackman did a study in like 9 months into somebody's sales career. Typically what happens is because they've heard the same problem so many times, they tend to shortcut the discovery and they don't listen as much.
That's a good one. What's the biggest challenge you've had in your business and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would say it's hard. Like, there's been a lot of challenges, but I don't know if there's been a single biggest one. I think the biggest one is just really in the beginning, figuring out what the hell you're doing. You know, it's like figuring out like what's really going to be the thing you stick with, and the market wants it. There's good product market fit. There's good scale. It's a great bit. That type of stuff. Like that took me a while to kind of figure it out. And then even when I figured it out, I questioned it a bunch. So that was kind of the hardest, most agonizing phase because you're in this place of like mental purgatory.
If you had to start all over and you couldn't take your reputation or your money or your connections with you, what's the first thing you would do and why?
Well, let me answer this question. I would just get into sales in an industry that I really liked. But let me just answer this question more broadly for anybody who would need it. What you should do is you should assess what you're passionate about, and then you should go get a job in that industry of what you're passionate about, working for a very fast-growing, up-and-coming company that gives you a lot of growth potential and that allows you hopefully access in the company to some great mentors, right? Like, okay, so for me, if I was restarting, I would just work for Alex Hormozy. Like 100%, I would just work for that guy. Because like he's kind of like the highest signal to noise individual in the entire industry. And so I would just find a way. I mean, I don't know. If I had no skills, I'd just be as like janitor or something. I don't know. I just try to figure out like how can I get into that dude's ecosystem, or I would get in the job that allowed me to get into his. You know, I would kind of like stepping stone it. And so that's kind of what I did a little bit. You know, I didn't work for him, but I worked for somebody else that was kind of, you know, on that same trajectory in a sense when I started off. It's a very, very good thing because you're going to get mentorship. You're going to be a part of a fast-growing company. Also, like, there's something to be said about being a part of a company that's great. So, like, most entrepreneurs, I think, really struggle because they don't even know what a great company looks like. They just, like, have no idea what that even looks like. Whereas I, like, was a part of one. So when I went to build one, I kind of already knew how to do it. Like, it's not that I knew how to do it. I knew what it looked like. It's weird. It's like a different thing. But how do you learn that? It's like you can't unless you've been there. So that's the biggest hack I would do is I'd find a industry you're passionate about, find a fast-growing, category king, top company. It's like before it gets to the corporate-y, crazy level, like it could be, you know, a $100 billion company potentially. It just, you got to find it to where there's like not bureaucracy, it's still relatively small, but it's also successful. And they're a category king. And then I would develop an income-producing skill within the company. That could be leadership. That could be some form of marketing. That could be some form of copywriting is marketing. And then it could be some form of sales. That could be dev. Just some sort of specialized knowledge you want to get, you know, with that company.
All right, last question. Where do you see yourself 10 years from now?
You know, hopefully being the biggest sales trainer and sales recruiter in the world. You know, I don't think we're very far off from that now. I don't think it'll take 10 years. But, yeah, I mean, that would be the biggest thing. And then ideally having $1 billion company. But I will say this. It is hard, like for us, like everything is grown so fast that, you know, I can give a better 5-year vision than I can give a 10-year vision. Just because, you know, it's like when you're growing and you're doubling every 3 months or 6 months, I mean, things are growing so fast. In your vision and your beliefs of what's possible, it changes so fast that it's hard to really set in stone a good 10-year vision. So that's a skill I'm still trying to build.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Cole, for being on the show today. Before we sign off here, if people want to learn more about you, connect with you, or your services, what are the best ways for them to do that?
Closers.io website.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today, Cole. If you want to learn more about what Cole and his company are doing, go to closers.io. And thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
All right. I'll see you guys.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure and go to hyperfastagent.com to learn about upcoming in-person and online events. And don't forget to share this show with someone that you think could benefit from hearing it, and make sure you subscribe on YouTube or anywhere that you can find podcasts.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the HyperFast Show. Subscribe to us if you want to make sure you get the latest and greatest HyperFast shows. And remember, we love reviews. Reviews help us bring better and better guests and improve our shows. So give us the good, the bad, and the ugly. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you next time.
Hey guys, thanks for sticking around to the end. I hope you enjoyed that video, and if you want to see more, click right here. And if you want 100 real estate tips from my best-selling book, click right here to download them instantly. And if you're new to this channel, click below to subscribe.